a number of players that I'm labeling on Step Up Saturday as having a big opportunity to do just that, to step up. These could be big-time impact players. Some of these names are underdogs this Saturday, but yet are in prime position to be the reason why an upset or two or three may be sprung. And the first one, I would argue, if you're going to see a big upset Saturday, the most important player in the country is Xavier Worthy. I'm not even looking at Quinn Ewers, and he's the quarterback at Texas. I'm looking at who he's throwing it to, Xavier Worthy. The other night on the show, on Tuesday, I said I didn't necessarily pick Texas to pull the upset, but if they do, I said Xavier Worthy will be the reason why. Because he's the closest thing since Sark had been at Alabama that looks like Devontae Smith. And so he's the guy. If you want to give someone 15 or 16 touches in a game, he's the guy to do it. It doesn't always mean 5-step, 7-step drop, long developing deep routes. That's not what I mean when I say give him 15 or 16 touches. I mean a couple of those. I mean quick slants. I mean that orbit motion stuff Sark does all the time. You could hand it off to him for all I care. I think a lot of the early offensive approach for Texas will also be just quick shots out wide. Get it on the perimeter. See how Alabama's corners match up against your bigger receivers blocking. That is how you have to find offense. Because what you can't do is allow Quinn Ewers to just be assaulted by Dallas Turner and Will Anderson all afternoon. So I think that if Texas is in this thing in the fourth quarter, several things have to have gone right, but the most important player in that whole equation will be Xavier Worthy. Big opportunity for him. Think about him going off against Oklahoma last week. Need that kind of game again. Probably need an even more spectacular performance, or at least a performance with more touches, even than he had in that game. Next up, I want to talk about Will Levis for a second. The Florida Gators are hosting Kentucky this Saturday night. What a great draw, as it turns out for Florida. What a great draw. It's tough that you face these two veteran coaching staffs in Utah and Kentucky back-to-back. But the benefit of the schedule has been both of these have been night games. See, Arkansas is playing South Carolina. It's an 11 a.m. local time kickoff. Florida has not had to deal with that. So at least they got these two games at night. And I don't know that you watched, I think most of you did watch that Utah-Florida game. Did you see that home environment? I heard our buddy Zach Smith talking about this earlier today. Everyone wants to talk about, is Texas back? Everyone wants to talk about, is FSU back? Is the Swamp back? I think the Swamp is back. I think he's right. I think the Swamp is back. Some would argue it never left. They would be wrong. But I don't ever think it became a non-intimidating environment. But anyone down there who has gone to games for several years and was at that Utah game last week, outside of that Auburn game a couple of years ago, which I was on the field for that Auburn game. Outside of that, Swamp hadn't felt like that. And it certainly hasn't come across like that on national TV. I'm saying all this because those are the teeth, rather, that Will Levis is leading Kentucky into Saturday. I don't feel particularly great about Kentucky's ability to run the ball against anyone right now. Florida, not the least. And therefore, if they're going to pull an upset, it's going to have to be disproportionately on Will Levis's shoulders. Now, I didn't get caught up in all the draft hype stuff in the summer. It's not to say that it wasn't valid. We just didn't really talk about it. We're not an NFL draft projection show, so we didn't get caught up in that. Will Levis has a ton of talent, ton of potential. The reason that it is a step-up Saturday for him is because if you were to fast forward 3 years down the road, and Will Levis is starting for the Minnesota Vikings or someone like that, it very well could be that you trace the lineage and his progression as a quarterback back to days like this coming Saturday. What if he goes in there and the run game does stall, but Will Levis keeps on making third down throw after third down throw, makes some plays with his legs, takes a free blitzer off the edge and takes a shot, but it glances because he spins just in time and he keeps plays alive with his legs, and he walks out of there grass stains head to toe, but Kentucky wins 38-34, and you're saying, wow, all that offseason, ooh, nasty word there, all that summer talk about Will Levis, maybe it was accurate. It's the kind of game he'll probably have to have for them to win. It is definitely a step-up Saturday for Will Levis. Now we go to the state of Iowa. That's where we were headed this time last year. Remember the Renaissance Tour last year, headed to Ames, Iowa, for Iowa versus Iowa State. And I want to say the Cyclones were favored by 5-6 points, somewhere around there. Anyway, they lost. They went down hard, turnover after turnover to Iowa. and it made it a fairly boring game to watch. Meanwhile, there were much more exciting games going on elsewhere. Well, that was last year. This year, you don't have to worry about being favored because you're on the road and you are a 3 or a 3.5 point dog against in-state rival Iowa, depending on where you look. And that, friends, is why it is a step-up Saturday for Matt Campbell. I could have picked a player, but I really think Matt Campbell last year, at the end of that game, looked himself in the mirror and said, I didn't have this team ready to play. And the reason I know that is because he stepped to the podium after the game and multiple times said, I didn't really have this team ready to play. Well, what lessons did we learn? Was that just coach speak? Did you really believe that or not? Because if you believe it, then, hey, this is a redemption opportunity for you. And this is just me talking now. I kind of talked about this the other night. I've done several radio hits this week, and I've said this. I don't know if this is the case yet, but I think eventually, sometime this year, Iowa State will be improved at quarterback from Brock Purdy to who they have starting now, who is Hunter Deckers. Now, again, it's early, so I don't know if that's the case yet. I think they are a quality team still. Quality program, all that. We say that all the time about Iowa State. But here's the thing. Everybody watched Iowa struggle offensively last week. College football teaches us all the time. Rarely do you get the same thing week 1 to week 2. Rarely. It could get better, it could get worse. It's rarely the exact same, and yet everyone predicates their prediction. Redundant. Everyone predicates their thoughts, there we go, on what's going to happen in week 2 by what I saw in week 1. Iowa's not going to light the scoreboard up, but they're going to have some type of adjustments. They're going to be able to move the ball somewhat, aren't they? Are they? Maybe. Yeah, I think so. And so what I'm saying is you can't go in there, score 10, and then just run the clock out. There's got to be a more sound offensive approach than there was last year. And if they were to win this game, they snap a 6-year losing streak against Iowa. It also probably announces that, yeah, they are a serious contender in the Big 12, even though they were probably written off a lot more in the preseason than you're used to the last couple of years. Hey, I'll give you one here that's way off your radar. In a game with a 51.5 point spread, no less. How about J.J. McCarthy at Michigan? Well, how is this a step-up Saturday? They're playing Hawaii. People started praying for Hawaii around Tuesday this week. It's going to be bad, but here's what's happening at Michigan. And I know most of you are aware of this by now, but Jim Harbaugh started Cade McNamara at quarterback in week 1. Check. And now this is the week where J.J. McCarthy is going to start, and there's a question mark. So we got a check from last week. Cade McNamara was what we expect Cade McNamara to be. This week, it is my belief J.J. McCarthy will play at a level that coronates him as QB1 at Michigan. And I think after this Hawaii game, sometime shortly thereafter, Jim Harbaugh will announce that he is their starting quarterback. And that's my belief. The reason I think that is because I think on a step-up Saturday for J.J. McCarthy, he's going to do just that. Cade McNamara is a very solid quarterback. Michigan is a very solid team with Cade McNamara. But I tweeted out earlier this week, and I'll tell you now, when you see us put Michigan at number 4 in the JP poll, just a little internal nugget here, when you see Michigan number 4 in the JP poll, it's because we've got that second name there, J.J. McCarthy, as QB1. So he's plugged into the model as QB1. We think they've got a higher ceiling with him there. We think that they can take advantage a lot more of still one of the most underrated wide receiver rooms in the country, and they can do it better. Especially down the road, they can do it better. It won't matter against Hawaii. It won't matter against UConn, Maryland, gross to start the season. It won't matter there, but boy, will it matter eventually down the road. You got Penn State, you got Michigan State, you go to Ohio State, of course, at the end of the year. I got Michigan going to the playoff this year, and I've got them going there with J.J. McCarthy. But it's not up to me. It's not up to the model. It's up to him. He's got to step up Saturday. Lastly, I've got a whole team for you here. How about Pitt? We picked Tennessee to go to Pitt and win as a 6 to a 6.5 point favorite this weekend. I'm not backing off that pick, but the thing about it is I picked Pitt to lose last week too. And somehow, some way, they found a way to prove me wrong. And it's another step up Saturday for them. Because what's the prize for winning in week 1? You get to be a home underdog in week 2 against an SEC Eastern Division opponent. And yet Pitt played this game last year. They won in Neyland last year. And I've listened to Pat Narduzzi this week do the traditional Dabo Swinney, no one believes in us, should we show up, blah, blah, blah. He's playing it exactly how I would if I were the head coach at Pitt. And it's an opportunity for them to step up. Not only would this be a really, really big win for them just because it's a win. Secondly, it's because it's against Tennessee. Thirdly, that'd be 2 weeks in a row with a brand new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator that you've gotten off to a really good start. I mean, there would be every excuse in the world if you were 1-1. You would be understandable at 0-2. But if they're 2-0, and then you're looking at the rest of the ACC. This is not a conference game Saturday, but if you're looking at the rest of the ACC, if Clemson continues to look like they did offensively the other night, they're still really good, but you're not scared of them. They don't look like the dragon that no one's going to be able to slay. And therefore, if you start 2-0, and then you've got some breathing room. They go to Western Michigan. What are you guys doing? Anyway, they go to Western Michigan. They got Rhode Island the next week. Look at the conference schedule. Notice there is no Clemson in the regular season, by the way. Could get real interesting really quick for Pitt. So those are just some of the names or the entities that I think have a distinct opportunity to step up and to kind of change the old narrative around the program and the team this weekend. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure and leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.